All right. Hello, everybody. How are you? Thank you so much for coming to this week's webinar. Happy New Year. I think this is only our second webinar of the year. So we're so happy today to have Prudence Rufus with us. Hi, Prue. This is the third or fourth webinar that Prudence has done with us. She is a financial guru and has all kinds of insights for how to run your business profitably. And we thought, what better time of the year than in January, where some people are having kind of a slower time, but I think just about everybody is taking a step back and looking at their business and kind of getting ready for the year ahead. So, Prudence, thank you so much for coming today. It's so great to see you. And we're going to do just a little bit of housekeeping. I see some folks already saying hi. We've got international people. We're in, let's see, the US, we've got Atlanta, Los Angeles, so both coasts. We've got England, some California, so we've got Hawaii. So it's awesome to see everybody. I love that you guys have started sharing your social handles in the chat so you can follow each other. What a great idea. And Tammy says hello from cold Minneapolis. It's cold here in Atlanta too. It's freezing.
Very cold.
Yeah, it's crazy weather. All right. So first of all, the first thing I want to mention is this will be recorded. So everyone will get an email after the webinar with the recording in it. So if you missed something, if you wish that you could go back and watch something, you'll be able to. The second thing I want to mention is the chat is great for chatting with each other, sharing your socials. But if you have a question for Prue, please go to the Q&A tab and put it in there. That helps kind of keep us not losing your questions, so it doesn't get all jumbled up with the chat going on. If you put a question in chat, I'm going to very quietly move it over to Q&A. So if you see something disappear that you typed in chat, it's likely because it was a question and I've moved it to the Q&A tab. The last thing that I want to mention is there's a handouts tab. And in that tab, you will find a link that is to Prue's site, Master Your Mint, where you're going to be able to find a whole bunch of additional information to follow up with her after the webinar. But I just wanted to put it there so it's pinned so you guys have access to it. We will also share it in the email that comes after the webinar and in Prue's presentation as well. Gosh, I think that's it. I try to get through this housekeeping pretty quickly, and I think I did a good job. Oh, one last thing. After the webinar ends, you'll be landed on a survey page. What we would love to know is what other kinds of topics you would like to hear about. So when we think about bringing speakers to you, we want to bring stuff that you want to learn about. So if you have an idea of somebody who would be a good speaker, even if it's nominating yourself, it could be on anything from a business topic to some kind of editing tutorial, just any topics like that. So during the survey portion, please do take a minute and respond. We read every single one of those. So without further ado, Prue, I'm going to hand the floor over to you.
And first I have to unmute my mic.
Your mic is on. I can hear you.
It is unmuted. Hello, everyone. I am just so honored to be here. I love speaking for ShootProof on the ShootProof platform. ShootProof has been a really integral part of my life for the last, let's say, 10 or so years. But as long as ShootProof has been around, I've been a part of ShootProof in one way or the other. And it's been a delightful experience all the way around. So I'm excited. So today, and I'm going to share my screen with you. So we got to do all that little housekeeping. Oh, I need to say for a disclaimer, right? It's really cold in Atlanta, which is where I'm located. Unusually cold. And so schools are closed, which means my entire family is here. And by entire family, I really do mean the entire family. I've yelled at them, told them to be quiet. So we'll see if they actually live up to that. And we'll chat about that a bit. So today we're going to talk about the cost of doing business and what that looks like and how we can spend time evaluating what the cost of our business looks like. And we want to do that with clarity and confidence, because that's what allows us to stay in business. If you've heard me talk before, you've heard me tell the story of name your favorite singer, Beyonce, Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, any favorite musical artist. And imagine that they probably started maybe in grade school, maybe they started at their local church or their school, and they started just singing just for the fun of it. But as their art evolved, in order for their art to evolve, they also had to evolve the business of how they approach their art. So they had to figure out how to charge. They had to figure out how to pay employees. They had to figure out how to buy props and buy clothing and all the things that come with the display of the art that they're doing. And in order for their art to improve, they also had to improve the business acumen of their art. And so we're here talking about the cost of doing business so that you can elevate your photography business. Most, if not all of you here are photographers. I think there are a couple people here who I might have personally invited that are not photographers, but are in the art industry in one way or the other. So that's what we are going to chat about here today. So a little bit about me is that I have this huge passion. I want you to use your money to live the life you want, and you get to decide what that looks like. You get to decide whether the life you want includes living in a certain home, whether the life you want includes traveling to certain places, whether the life you want includes being able to keep your heat on 85 versus 62. You get to choose whether the life you want includes buying new purses. Do you want to send your kids to certain schools? Do you want to retire early? You get to decide what that life looks like. And my goal is for you to have the money so that you can use the money to live the life that you want. Little about me. I lived my life as a photographer for 10 or so years, closer to 12 years. And I ran a photography industry. It's still alive and well, Photos by Prue, but it's kind of semi-retired. So right now, I only see clients that have been long-standing, that I have been photographing them year after year after year. So I don't see too many clients because Master Your Mint has taken over so much of my time. But I love, love, love photography. My philosophy is once a photographer, always a photographer. So I am always a photographer, and my website is still up, though it hasn't been updated in a long time. And little fun fact about me, one of the first things, there were two things that I did when I started to become more professional about my approach to photography. And that was, I got ShootProof and I got a CRM. My CRM is 17 Hats. And those two things allowed me to show up, to look more professional to my clients. I was able to deliver images rather than on a CD, which can be professional as well, but that's also dating myself, or send in a Google Doc or a Google folder. I could now send them a beautiful gallery with their images and still use that gallery to this day. So yeah, so I started my life as a photographer, which is kind of how I ended up in this world. However, this is where I started my life. I went to Georgia State University to the J. Mac Robinson College of Business and got a degree in finance. And I worked as a banker, a financial planner, an insurance agent, a tax preparer. And even when I was a photographer, I still had a group of private clients that I saw and that I supported through their financial questions. And that's kind of how this conversation has shown up for me, is that as I got deeper and deeper in the photography world, I found myself answering lots and lots of questions about the finances of business, and the taxes were a big thing of what businesses look like and what do photographers need to do. Now, I know our audience here is largely from the US, but I do know that there are some of you that are overseas. This should benefit you as well, because we're talking about the cost of doing business, but there's some parts of it that are more specific to the United States. And I hope that those who are in the United States will benefit greatly from that. But I hope that you also take that information that is specific about taxes and apply whatever is necessary to your own specific country or your own specific region. So went to Georgia State. Oh, and a little fun fact about me. At Georgia State, I met this guy right here, right? And now here we are. It's four of us. We have gone on and gotten married and had kids and all the things. So you can imagine that I am living life as a photographer, and I have this amazing family that I need to be present for and be supportive of, including the finances. So this mantra of using your money to live the life you want became very, very real for me, because the kids need clothes. And if you have kids, you know that every season it's a new wardrobe, because what they wore when they were 3 months does not fit them now that they are 6 months. What they wore when they were 2 years old does not fit them now that they are 16, 17. And let me tell you, these kids are expensive. And the life that I want for my right, so many clothes, Whitney, so many clothes. The life that I want for my children and for my family and for myself requires money. And that's just the truth of it. There's no way of getting around that. There's no way of changing that. There's no way of making that something different. It just is the reality of where we are. And so, as I'm having these conversations with lots and lots of photographers, mostly, I'm realizing that tax planning for solopreneurs is a real thing. So, I teach this class pretty often in various ways, tax planning for solopreneurs. And so that kind of has led us to where we are today in this class. So, in this class, we're going to talk about how to price your services for profit, how to understand your business expenses, how to set financial goals that align with your dreams, and how to pay yourself. Those are all tied together. And all of these questions matter whether you have a business or whether this is a hobby for you. Because if this is a hobby for you, you still have expenses that are associated with it. And those expenses have to be paid for somehow. You can choose to have your clients pay the expenses, or you can choose to pay the expenses out of your personal funds that you acquire through other means. So the question of whether the finances of your business or the finances of your photography is important, those questions stand whether this is a business or whether this is a hobby. Taxes tend to give us most of the pain that we see when it comes to what happens in our business. And here in the United States, the formula that the IRS has derived is this: sales minus expenses equals profit. So however much you sold, however much money you've brought in, you decided you're going to charge your clients $50 a session or $300 a session or $5,000 a session, whatever those sales are that you bring in, minus the expenses of what it costs you to run your business or to operate your photography studio, minus those will equal your profit. Here's what the IRS says about expenses. You can deduct any expense that is both ordinary and necessary for the operation of your business. This is directly from the IRS's website. To be deductible, a business expense must be both necessary and ordinary. There's a difference between necessary and ordinary. Necessary is something that you do for the way that you do business. So, for example, if you decide that your clients, you will, for your first meeting, you're going to take them out to dinner. And you take them out to dinner, and that's where you discuss the foundations of your business. That's where you build rapport. That's where you tell them about your business. That's a necessary expense for the way that you do business. An ordinary expense is someone that's commonly accepted in your industry. So, for example, if you're a photographer, an ordinary expense in photography is to have a camera. So a camera would be an ordinary expense. So any expense that is necessary or ordinary for your business is deductible. Here's the good news, the juicy, good, really, really happy news is that you're only taxed on the profit. So you can bring in $6 million, you can bring in $600,000, you can bring in $600. But the amount that you're taxed on is offset by whatever expenses there are. I have a statement that I use. I said, revenue is for vanity, profit is for sanity. So there are so many people who will say, hey, I am a six-figure photographer. That is a goal, and that is an important goal for some people, right? But you can be a six-figure photographer and you can still be losing money. You can still be in a space where you're not profitable. You can still be in a space where you're not taxed. You can still be in a space where you're not able to pay yourself. You can still be in a space where you're not able to use your money to live the life you want, unless the life you want is running an unprofitable business. So you are only taxed on the profit. I've had clients who made $20,000 and profited $18,000. I've had clients who have made $200,000 and profited $2,000. Guess who paid more taxes? The person that profits the most. So you're only taxed on your profit, and that's an important distinction. Within the US, we have some tax documents that we use. One of them is a 1040, but when it comes to businesses, your expenses go on the Schedule C, and this is just a portion of the Schedule C. And what you'll find, and this will kind of be important later on, and I'll explain. What you'll find on the Schedule C is that these are the categories where all of your expenses need to fall into. And every single business uses the same Schedule C. So if you are a lawn care business, this is the Schedule C. If you are a musician, this is your Schedule C. If you're a photographer, this is your Schedule C. If you run a home care agency, this is your Schedule C. And this is where on all of your expenses must fall within one of these categories. Now, of course, there's this other expenses, which is kind of like a catch-all for things that don't neatly fall within that. And there's other additional forms where you get to explain what might fall into that. There are a couple of things missing here. So like the home office expense, that's missing. Car and truck expenses, that requires a little bit more explanation. So you see instructions here, there's more going on there. But this is generally where all of your expenses will fall into one of these categories. So you know that you're only taxed on your profit, and you know that your gross profit, Lee said your gross profit, the money that you bring in, is offset by your expenses, right? And you're only taxed on your profit. So then the question is, what are the taxes that you're going to pay? For most of us, we're going to pay income tax. We're going to pay a state income tax if you're in a state that taxes. There are a couple states that don't tax. And you're going to pay self-employment tax. Self-employment tax generally is 15.3%. Self-employment tax are like your Medicare and your FICA taxes, like your Medicare, your Social Security, those kinds of taxes. Your income tax, that's going to be based on your income. And let me show you how that works, right? So these are the 2023 numbers because the numbers change every single year. And this is for a single taxpayer, so a single person. The married taxpayer tax brackets look different. The head of household, their tax brackets look different. Someone who is married filing separately, your tax brackets look different. So I just want you to know that this exists, and I want you to know how it works, because you can always go look it up to see what it is for 2024 or what it is for any particular year you're looking at. So let's say you profit, because we're only taxed on profit, you profited $75,000. So $75,000 will put you in this 22% tax bracket. So your taxable income is here, $75,000. It's between $44,000 and $95,000. So the way the tax calculator works is that the first $11,000 that you make is only going to be taxed at 10%. And then everything from $11,001 to $44,000 is taxed at 12%. And then anything over that $44,725, so 26 and on, that's going to be taxed at 22%. So although you're in the 22% tax bracket, your entire income is not taxed at 22%. And if you're in a state that has state income taxes, the taxes look pretty similar as well. Does that make sense? I hope so. So then the question comes up, okay, so how do I know what I'm going to be taxed? How can I prepare for that ahead of time? Because I hate at the end of the year when I'm now calculating how much my taxes are, like what that's going to look like. And that's where bookkeeping comes in. Your bookkeeping, regardless of where in the world are you, bookkeeping principles are generally accepted worldwide, and they're generally the same. The taxation is different based on where you are. It even varies if you're in the United States, because in the United States, your state taxes look different based on what state you are. If you're in a county that you have to pay county taxes, that looks different. If you're in a city, that looks different. But bookkeeping principles apply worldwide. So your bookkeeper or your tax preparer or you will need to create a profit and loss report. And the profit and loss report is exactly what it does. It calculates your sales, it calculates your expenses, it does the mathematics to subtract your expenses from your sales to determine whether you made a profit or loss. And you could look at this information annually. Here in the United States, you have to look at it at least annually because you're filing your tax return. But you really should be looking at this information monthly and definitely quarterly to determine if you have to file a quarterly tax return. There's some rules around quarterly tax returns, and I taught a class on this with ShootProof a couple months ago. So if you want to find out about quarterly tax returns, you can dig into the ShootProof archives, and there's some information on that. So what does your bookkeeping do for you? So if you have bookkeeping, even bad bookkeeping, will help you to stay organized financially, will help you to know, where is my business doing? You won't be waiting until the end of the year to know whether you have made a profit or not. So you'll be able to pivot in the middle of the year. If you're realizing that charging $300 for a photo shoot and delivering all the digitals for $300 is putting you in a position where you are losing money, then you may now need to pivot. You may need to charge more, or you may need to reduce your expenses. So it helps with financial organization. It helps with informed decision making. It helps keeps you compliant with tax laws, because you'll know if you're making a profit. If you're making a profit, you need to start setting aside money for taxes. It will help you with your cash flow management. Do you find sometimes as a business owner, you're in this feast and famine kind of lifestyle? Lejeune said it saves you a headache doing ahead of time. Absolutely. Saves you a big headache doing it ahead of time. If you are applying for loans or if you're applying for investments, a couple of years ago with COVID here in the United States, a lot of businesses had the option of applying for PPP loans or the EIDL loans. But if you didn't have any bookkeeping and if you didn't have any way of keeping track of what the finances of your business were, you weren't able to get that, right? The other thing that happens is that if you are doing your business bookkeeping on a regular basis, at least monthly, on a regular basis, it helps you to get all the deductions that you can get. Imagine that you haven't done your bookkeeping for a year or for 2 years or for 3 years, and now you're going back trying to pull all that information. Naturally, there's just going to be some stuff that you forgot. And God forbid you're in a scenario where you have been using your personal bank account to do both personal expenses and business expenses. There's going to be stuff that you miss. So bookkeeping generally just provides peace of mind. If there's anything that I can tell you to walk away with this, and if you do nothing, I would say get a separate bank account for your business income and your business expenses. If you have bookkeeping, great, you're way ahead of most of your peers. But if you do not have bookkeeping, having that separate business bank account will save you a lot of headache for the moments when you haven't done the financial record keeping that you need to do. Awesome, awesome. Finally did that. Now, bookkeeping does two things. Bookkeeping helps you to look at what's happening in the past. So you're looking at your bookkeeping at the end of the month to see what happened that month, or you're looking at your bookkeeping at the end of the year to see what happened that year. It helps you to look at what's in the past. But bookkeeping and budgeting go hand in hand. Budgeting is looking at what's going on in the future, or what you want to see happen in the future. Both go hand in hand. Bookkeeping is historical. Budgeting is forecasted. So your forecasted profit and loss statement is a budget, both in your personal life and in your business life. Both are important. Here's where we're getting to the juicy stuff, right? So here's what we know so far. You know that your sales determine how much money you've brought in. Your expenses are how much money it costs you to generate those sales, right? And then from your sales, now you need to determine your profit. After you've determined your profit, then you get to decide the last two things. Can you pay yourself whatever wages that you want to pay yourself? And have you set aside money for taxes? Right? These questions, I want you to be able to answer these questions fully and completely and with confidence and with clarity. And this is where we're going to dig in. I want to see your numbers grow. You see how these numbers grew as I clicked on the button? Hold on, I want to see it again because I think it was kind of cool. Let's see. Watch this. That's what I want to see happen. I want to see the numbers grow. Now, there's going to be ebbs and flows. This, for many photographers, is our slow season. It's also conference season. So if you're off at a conference, you're not home taking pictures. Or it's cold. If you're in an area that's cold and you're generally an outdoor photographer, you're not outside taking pictures because it's cold. Your clients aren't out there. You aren't out there. So for many photographers, this is our slow season. However, the slow season doesn't always stay. So I am going to take you, I'm going to stop sharing this screen for a minute, and I'm going to share something else with you. And we are going to walk through what these calculations look like in real time. So let's do that. All right, you should be able to see a spreadsheet. And I'm going to create a new sheet. And we are going to walk through this. You're going to actually see me do this live because I want you to know how to do it for yourself. And spreadsheets are my happy place. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I love my glasses too. Okay. All right. So we're going to put some numbers in and feel free to chime in. So your sales, we're going to pretend this is for a month, right? So let's say your sales for the month are $8,000. You brought in $8,000. And your expenses. Now, expenses are going to fall into multiple categories, and we've looked at what those categories would look like from the IRS. But you've done the work of looking at all of your business expenses, right? And you know that your expenses for your business are, let's give this a number. Let's say your expenses for your business are $2,100, right? You have a studio, you have an assistant, you have ShootProof, you have your CRM that you're paying for, you have an educational course that you're paying for, you have your bookkeeper that you're paying monthly, whatever those expenses are, you know exactly what they are, right? So your expenses in a given month are $2,100. So now we're going to see, okay, so what's the profit, right? Said we're doing this live, right? So your profit is going to be, in this case, $5,900. So you're profitable. If you're profitable, we know you're going to have taxes. So we need to set aside some money for taxes. Now, a general rule of thumb, and it varies from person to person, is from business to business, to set aside around 30%. Now, that can change a bit, and I'm showing you how I'm doing it, right? Let's try it again. And we don't want the decimal, so we're going to take that out. That can vary a bit, but let's say you set aside 30%. 30% for most people is enough for us to pay our state taxes if we have any, to pay our federal taxes if we have any, and to leave a little buffer for anything else that's happening in our life. So we need to set aside 30% in taxes. So we're going to take this times whatever amount we're setting aside in taxes, and there we go. So we're going to set aside $1,770. So balance remaining. So you've gotten your profit. You set aside some for taxes. Now, this is what you have remaining. So 4130. So I want you to think about it this way. That 30%, yes, it does include the self-employment tax, an estimate for the self-employment tax. Keep in mind that it's an estimate, right? And if depending on what your profit is, you might need to file quarterly taxes. And I think Karen posted the quarterly taxes explained spreadsheet. And you'll know if you watch that previous webinar, you'll see how you need to calculate quarterly taxes, and you'll get some support with that. But you'll set that aside and you'll go through that. So you set aside your taxes, and yes, this taxes does include, for most people, it will include enough for their income tax, their state income tax, as well as their self-employment tax. All right. So now you have 4130. Your business brought in $8,000, but you have 4130. So you've also done your household budget, and you know how much you need to pay yourself. Of the amount you need to pay yourself, you can pay yourself up to $4130. But let's say you decide you're only going to pay yourself $3,500. That's how much your household needs for the month. And so after setting aside for your taxes and paying yourself, you have $630 left. Now, this $630, you can set it aside because you want to save money for the following month's expenses. You can set it aside because you want to create a fund for whatever improvements you might make to your business. It's good business practice to set aside some money and not to spend everything that comes in. But here's what you know that you made $8,000. You can pay yourself $3,500. You're still setting aside money for taxes, and you still have some money left over. So then the question is, all right, so I need to make $8,000. How many sessions do I need to make this $8,000? So if the average price for your session is $500, so on average, your sessions cost $500, or you make $500 from your sessions. So how many sessions do you need to do in order to make $500? So we are going to do the math for that. It's going to give us the numbers. We're going to change it not to numbers. We're going to change it to a plain old number. Oh, and we don't have half a session, so we need to round up. Doing the math. And so what you know from this here is that if you're charging $500 a session, in order to make $8,000, you need to do 16 sessions. Well, 16 sessions a month. What if you don't want to do 16 sessions? You could do a couple of things. You could decide that you're going to raise your session price to $1,500. So if your average session price or sales is $1,500, now you only need to do 6 sessions to get to your $8,000. But what if you don't need $8,000 in sales? What if you want to make $4,000 in sales? Well, if we're doing $4,000 in sales, we need to change a few things, right? Maybe you pay yourself less. So maybe you say you're going to pay yourself nothing, or maybe you're only paying yourself $1,000. But you get to navigate that. What if you say, okay, I don't want a studio. My expenses are not this much. My expenses are only $500. Then that leaves you with some wiggle room. This is the math of how to do it, right? If in this class, listening to me right now, or listening to the replay, and you want this spreadsheet that I've just created, you'll get a link later on. You can have it. It is yours. You get to create that. Now, I don't know if any of you remember when you were in math class, and I'm going to stop sharing and reshare for a second. If you were in math class and your algebra teacher decided that they are going to show you how to do long division, and then they show you how to do it the quick, easy way, and you're like, well, why didn't you just show me that way first? Well, I'm about to show you a different option that I have created. Now, this option does the math for you. So imagine, and these are, I work with various business owners, so we use all kinds of fancy things here. So imagine that we know what these categories are, and that's what this purpose line is. We know what the categories are in that Schedule C, and this document is supposed to help you create a budget for what's happening in your business. Thank you, Christopher. And to create some plans around it. And some of your expenses are monthly, some of your expenses are annual. For example, if you go to conferences, and if you know that on average you spend $2,500 going to a conference, we're going to add that in here, and we're going to mark it as an annual expense, and we're going to add that to the amount of expenses your business needs to set aside on a monthly basis. Divide that by 12 so that when the conference time comes, you have the money to pay for your hotel, you have the money to pay for your flight, you have the money to pay for getting there. If you pay for any of your business services on an annual basis, you also have that money set aside so that come Black Friday used to be my time of the year when I would renew all of my annual contracts, I would make sure that I had enough money. So let's talk through it. So let's say the rent for your studio is $800 a month. The internet in the studio is $7,500. You have insurance for your business. Maybe you have it through PPA, or maybe you have it through Hiscox. But let's say you have it through Hiscox and you're paying $85 a month. Now we need to designate here whether these expenses are, whether we're paying them monthly or annually. So you see, I made the change here to annual. Right? Your LLC in your state, I'm in Georgia, the LLC costs $100 a year. So that's an annual payment. My website, I use Show It, and I pay for it monthly, but let's say we pay for it annual. I think their thing is $300. So let's say annually. Canva, you're paying for Canva monthly. Hang on, let's take these out. Let's see, give me some other expenses that you have for your business. Jot them in the amounts. Jot them here, and I will plug them into this spreadsheet. ShootProof. Let's say you have ShootProof, and you are paying $10 a month for ShootProof. Create Adobe. Yes. How much are you paying for Adobe? Okay. Adobe. Do you have the big plan? Okay. $29.99, and you're doing that monthly. Yes. Okay. New gear. Somebody says they want to set aside $500 a month for new gear. $500. Okay. Whoa. I love this. I love this. Oh, Edward, that means you have this already, because that's the only way you could copy and paste this. Oh, this is lovely. Oh, I love this. I love it. Okay, so let's put PPA in here. PPA is $27.95 a month. All right, now in this spreadsheet, you can also put whatever the billing date is, because that might help you with your cash flow. Okay, and these are monthly. We have this one annual. Let's put a conference in here. Let's put Imogen. Imogen is coming up. And let's say you need to budget $2,500 for Imogen. That comes up once a year. All right, let's put our categories in. Okay, this category, and these categories are based on the business category. So Imogen would mostly fall under travel expenses. PPA, we're going to put that under insurance. New gear, we're going to put that under materials and supplies. ShootProof is an office expense. Canva, most of our Canva is used for social media. So then that would be advertising. Your website is absolutely advertising. Your LLC, that is an office expense. Insurance, internet utilities. Okay, all right, so we've categorized this. So here's what happens on this spreadsheet. So all of this information here is going to be categorized based on whether you pay for it monthly or annually. So if you pay for these expenses monthly, it's going to tell you here that $1,540.93 are your monthly expenses. So before you bring in $1, you will need $1,540.93 to meet your expenses. You have some annual expenses, and those annual expenses total, in this case, $2,900, right? Now we have to talk about how much do you want to pay yourself. So do you want to pay yourself, let's say $2,700 a month? And we're going to set aside 30% for taxes. There's some other options here, but let's say you set aside 30% for taxes, right? So here's what this spreadsheet is telling us so far. Your monthly recurring expenses is $1,540. Your annual expenses is $2,900. You want to pay yourself $2,700. And based on this, we're just calculating your break-even point at this point, that in order to be able to pay yourself and pay your expenses and pay taxes, $810 will be set aside for taxes. So if we change this to, let's say, 20%, you see that number changes, right? So 30% set aside for taxes. What we know is that in order to meet these expenses, your total monthly operational expenses needs to be $52.92. So then we're going to do some other magic math. Let me scroll down. I know I'm missing some. So we're going to do some other magic math. I'm reading your comments, and this is delightful, right? The average cost of your product, your session, let's change that number. Let's say on average, you're selling your products for $750 per session, right? Or in your case, it's a session, but if you were selling, let's say, earrings, for example, that number would look different, okay? And then let's say you have a full-time job, so you're really only working on weekends. So you're really only working 8 days out of the month, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 8 days out of the month. So you're going to say you're only working 8 days a month. So here's what this is telling you. So in order for you to hit $750, in order for you to make this amount of money, and all of these numbers round up, you need to have at least 8 sessions a month, which means you need to have at least 2 sessions a week. And because this number rounds up, it says 1 per day, right? What if that number changes? What if the number of work days, what if you decide I'm full-time, so I'm going to work 20 days out of the month? We still have these same numbers. However, what if the average cost of our product changes to $500? Now you need 11 sessions a month. Or what if you are offering your sessions for, just give me $125? Now you need 43 sessions a month in order to hit that. What if you're only working, the daily break-even point is where it changes. What if you're only working 8 days a month in this session, in this scenario? Now, in order to hit your $52.92, which allows you to pay yourself $2,700, you will need to have 6 sessions per day for your 8 days that you're working. This spreadsheet does the same as the other spreadsheet. It just has done most of the calculation for you. Someone said they can't see, my video is blocking. Can't see the break evens. Okay, hang on. I scrolled it up. Can you see that now? Yes, you should be able to. Yes, okay. All right. What this spreadsheet also does, it will also do the budgeting for you based on what you've done and put the things in the categories where they are. And then it will give you a breakdown. Your annual operational expenses is $63,000. your monthly operation expenses is $52.92, and the largest expense category is materials and supplies, and it breaks it down for you. And then there's if you want to know what your recurring bills are, you can click here and you'll see. If you added in the billing dates, it would be here, so you can use this to help you with the managing and the cash flow of your money. So I'm going to change the number a little bit. So what if you decided $2,700 a month is not enough? You need to pay yourself $5,000 a month. All right. If you noticed, all the numbers changed. So now your break even looks different. Maybe you've decided you're going to charge $3,400 for your sessions. You do weddings. So if your weddings are $3,400, or if your portrait sessions are $3,400, you're only working 8 days a month. You need 3 of those sessions a month in order to be able to pay yourself, pay your taxes, run a profitable business, and pay your expenses. And there's a bonus in this formula. It actually will give you enough money to be able to pay your expenses for the next month. Spreadsheets are my jam. I love, 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 love spreadsheets. So my goal with all of this, I'm going to stop sharing and share again, because we're going to look at something this different. My goal with all of this is I want you to be able to use your money to live the life you want. Remember that picture I showed you at the very beginning? First, it was me. Then it was me and hubby. And then it was me and hubby and kids. And when I started in photography, one of my goals was there was a school that I wanted my kids to go to. And I started photography so that I could pay for that school. That was my business plan, to be able to have the tuition every month to pay for that school. Then I got to a space where I realized that the tuition for that school, I'd get 10% off if I paid for the whole year in advance. And so my goal then was to be able to pay for their tuition a year in advance. So I used spreadsheets to help me to use the money that I generated from photography to be able to dig into what I wanted my life to look like. And that's what I would want for you all. I want you to be able to run legal, ethical, and profitable businesses. If your business is not profitable, the truth is eventually you will have to close, or you will have to shift to it being a complete hobby. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is absolutely a beautiful experience, but I want you to do that out of an intentional choice rather than out of something happening to you. I want you to be able to choose how you want photography to show up in your life. Our objectives for our conversation here was for you to be able to learn how to price your services for profit, learn how to be able to understand your business expenses, learn how to be able to set financial goals that align with your dreams, and learn how to pay yourselves. And I hope that I have done that for you today. I want you to understand how your cost of doing business impacts your life, and for you to be able to make informed decisions. I want you to be able to price your services, not just for survival, but to price your services for profit. I want you to be able to manage your cash flow so that you can stay in control. I want you to be able to plan for long-term growth so that you can achieve your goals. I want you to be able to retire with dignity. If you want to start implementing what you have learned today, I have some options for you. This QR code will take you to a link, take you to my CRM. And in that CRM, you will have a few options. The spreadsheet that we created live together, you can get a copy of that spreadsheet. Fill out the form, I will send that to you. If you want to schedule some one-on-one time where I have carved out time in my calendar to talk to you, you can schedule that. The clarity call is free. It's a conversation. We determine what your needs are and whether I can meet those needs. If you would like to purchase the fancier spreadsheet, that option is also available there as well with the spreadsheet. What I want, though, is that I don't want you to wait until tax season. I don't want you to wait until the next financial crunch. I don't want you to wait until you're in panic mode to get your finances in order. The best time to act is now. If you do one thing towards your dreams every day, at the end of the year, you would have done 365 things. Use your money to live the life you want. We're about to get into Q&A. But if this conversation was transformational for you, I don't know that you all know the amount of resources that ShootProof puts into creating these webinars for you. So please follow them on social media, post about this experience, tag ShootProof. If it's this conversation, tag Master Your Mint, write a Google review for me or for ShootProof. And if you want to follow up with this conversation, the QR code is right there. I'm more than happy to continue this conversation with you.
Thank you, Prudence. That was amazing. Something when you talked about, doing one thing every day, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's already January 23rd, but that's okay. We've only missed 23 days. There's still 300 and,
Yes.
So it's not too late. It's not too late. This was one of those years where I didn't make any New Year's resolutions this year. And you're making me rethink that. I'm like, maybe, it's not too late. So thank you. I appreciate that. And we're seeing folks in the chat just loving everything you've taught us today. So I appreciate that so much.
Awesome.
In the Q&A, do you want me to read you questions, or do you want to kind of go through and see them yourself?
You can read them.
Okay. All right, let's see. Michael W. says, I recently turned my LLC into an S Corp. Do you have any advice or suggestions?
Okay, so LLC to an S Corp, that's a lovely thing. So if your business is making profiting, we're always talking profit here, profiting around $75,000 a year, you really should consider the conversation of moving from an LLC to an S Corp. It helps you, remember that 15.3% in self-employment tax? It helps you to save a bunch of money on that self-employment tax. There's some accounting mathematics involved in making that possible. The number one suggestion I would have for you is, one, you need good bookkeeping. You need good record keeping. You need to remember to file your S Corp taxes by March 15th of each year. You need to send in your 1099s or W-2s by January 31st. Which is just in a few days from now. You need to keep up with the record keeping as an S Corp. The record keeping for an S Corp is higher than the record keeping for an LLC. That would be my number one advice for you. What is the cost of the fancy spreadsheet? The fancy spreadsheet is $97. And if you go to the link, you'll get access to being able to purchase that. Someone said, do I just need ShootProof, Instagram, phone number, and Facebook to have my business, or need an LLC? You don't need anything. If you're cutting the grass and making, the IRS says if you're making more than $400 a year selling your services, then you're supposed to file a tax return. You need nothing. You can be accepting cash. You don't need any ShootProof. You don't need Instagram. You don't need anything in order to be considered a business. Now, if you want to have all of the liability protections in place, that's when the LLC shows up. I think, okay, we have Edward's question. Any advice for someone who specializes in weddings, but also relies on mini sessions to try to fill in the slow periods? I think if you look at what the amount of money that your business needs, as well as the amount of money that you need to be able to pay yourself, you'll be able to very strategically design how many sessions it is that you need, how you need to price your products for your sessions, how you need to price your session prices in order to be able to fill in those slow periods. You also can decide that in your budgeting, one of your expense categories could be reserved for the slow season. And you could create a savings account that is just for creating the ability that you can pay yourself when the slow season hits, because the slow season hits for every kind of business. There's ups and downs. Calculations, how to plug in the formulas in the spreadsheet. If you watch the replay of this, you'll see me actually on the original spreadsheet, you'll see me type them in. You can type them in, and when you get that spreadsheet, they will already be there. They will already be typed in, so you can just simply use it and tweak it to your purpose. The fancy spreadsheet already has the formulas in. There's some people where the fancy spreadsheet, they need something even fancier. Schedule a call, and I can create something custom for you based on your needs. I think the last two questions were the same. How do I do the calculations? The spreadsheet does the calculations. I just need to know math. You know how they say that you don't use algebra ever? This is not true. I use algebra every single day. That's how I'm able to do the calculations. I'm just telling the spreadsheet what the algebraic formula is that it needs to use to create that. Okay, so Danielle says, when should one even begin to think about becoming an LLC? That's a personal question. It's up to you to decide. The LLC has nothing to do with taxation. The LLC has nothing to do with income or expenses or profit or loss. All an LLC does is protects you from liability. So when you believe that your liability needs to be protected or that your liability is exposed, that's when you would go through the process of forming an LLC. And an LLC is formed at the state level. So you would go to your state or any other state. I live in Georgia, but I can form an LLC based in Delaware if I want to. Yes, an LLC costs. That cost varies by state. So some states, in Georgia, it's $100. In California, it's $800. Some states have minimum income requirements. Some states have additional paperwork requirements. It varies from state to state because it's managed at the state level. I think that answers Danielle and Edward's question. John said, in the handouts, do you have suggested categories like you show in the Schedule C for us to bucket expenses in our Excel spreadsheet when it's tax time? I don't have suggestions because suggestions can change quite a bit from person to person. So for example, your website is where you show your business, right? So that generally is going to fall under advertising. However, Canva is one of those that could go in either direction. So if you use Canva primarily for, let's say, creating social media posts, then that's advertising. So that would be there. But if you use Canva for creating transactional documents between you and your clients, then maybe that's not advertising, maybe that's an office expense. So it varies based on how you use it. If you have questions about how you're using it, I would say questions about what category to put in, then consider how you're using it and figure out which category it best falls into. And if there's a question about that, chat with your tax preparer. If I have Hiscox, do I need an LLC? If you have Hiscox, do you need that? That's a personal question. That kind of depends on you and how much protection you feel that you need based on what your exposures are. Okay, Ed had another question. I'm only allowed to have one bank account because I'm on Medicaid and trying to get on Social Security. My case manager only wants me to have one. Should I use Cash App, Venmo, or other online platform for business purposes? Cash App is a bank account. Venmo is a bank account. All of those other online platforms are bank accounts, actually. They just use other more socially catchy marketing type labels, but they're still bank accounts and they are still banks. So yes. Tips to get more clients: show your work, talk to people, talk about why you do photography, and keep explaining that over and over again. And eventually the people that are attracted to the work that you do will find you. But if you say nothing, they know nothing. And Tammy, where to get my glasses from? I think I bought these, I know I bought these from one of those online retailers. It actually has my prescription in it. I want to say it was Zlol
Is it Zenny?
or Zenny. One
Zenny?
of the
I
two.
love
There's
Zenny.
two of them. So it's one of them, but I can't remember which one. And I get that question often enough that I probably need to go look it up. But yeah, but I love these glasses. These glasses are my, fun space to be in.
They are awesome. And the thing I like about the online stores is they're inexpensive. So you can buy a whole bunch of them and just like try new things that you wouldn't typically try because they're not that
right. Expensive. I have another pair here when I want to be more
those are cute too.
I have several pairs, and I have pairs in my purse and pairs upstairs. So yes, so it allows me to do that. I always get one from the optician because the optician places my prescription in a way that the online retailer can't. But I'll get the online retailers just for fun.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Shelly. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's a record for getting through questions. That was quick. Thank you, Prue. And we are only 2 minutes over, so that's perfect. I just wanted to remind everybody there is a survey after, so let us know what else you want to learn about. Edward, I think maybe your question about how to find more clients would be a great one to add to the survey. Maybe we could do a whole webinar about how to find clients. So please answer the survey if you have 30 seconds to do so. Prudence, it was a joy as always, and just filled me with knowledge and things. I don't even have a photography business anymore, but I love to keep up on it just so that I can know what's happening in the world and what ShootProof studios need to be learning about. So for me to learn is also it's a fun thing. It's not a chore. So I appreciate you coming and making it fun for all of us. And I think everyone here should be getting the replay, which will also include the link. So if you missed the link earlier, you'll be getting that in the email. And yes, Arlene, the replay will be emailed. It may be an hour or two. The video has to process and buffer and all that stuff, but you will get it today. Awesome. Thank you, Prue. And we hope to see you again very, very soon.
Awesome. Awesome. I love teaching. Thank you all. And thank you for being here. And thank you for listening in and giving me feedback.
Great. All right. Well, I hope everyone has a great week and we'll see you soon.
All right.
All righty. Bye.
Bye-bye.